Hey everyone, this is Uri Peleg, and the video I'm making today is going to be about how to analyze hands in PLO. I'm going to show a different approach than the common one that you might see, and I'm going to do this by using a combination of poker tools and PLO tools, and the idea is going to be that rather than understanding what a specific combo is going to be doing, we're going to get kind of a bird's eye view of the situation, understand the moving parts in a way, the chess pieces that we're playing with, what each one is trying to do. And with that, we'll be able to generalize and later be able to look at different boards and different hands and have hopefully a good idea of what we should be doing with each hand. So the hand I'm looking at here is played by Phil Galfond against Vinny Vidi in his Heads Up Challenge, which if you haven't, I definitely recommend you check out. Phil 3-bet with Ace King 10-7, got a King 4-8 board and decided to check. And at this point, I'm going to go away from the hand. We're going to look at two different PLO-Solver solutions to a similar board, King 7-3. And then we're going to go back to PLO. And the reason we're going to look at the Hold'em solutions is because in Hold'em, it's a lot easier to actually see structures for these kind of situations. So this is PLO-Solver for all the PLO players who don't know it. And PLO-Solver gives you a grid view. So we get to see the entire flop strategy at once, which is really, really useful when we're trying to, like I said, get a bird's eye view. So in this sim, I made a pot size c-bet, and the reason for that is that the pot size c-bet clearly illustrates the structure of the solution. The different hands and their jobs are very well defined. So here we see 36% betting range, with some hands betting a lot and some hands never betting. And I'm going to walk you guys through this quickly. Kings and sevens are our highest equity hands, but they're also invulnerable. These hands almost never bet. The next tier of value hands, King, Jack, King, Queen, Ace, King, and Aces, are all betting at very high frequencies. The next tier of hands, so King 10, King 9, King 8, King 6, Queens, and Jacks, are doing close to zero betting. What's going on here is, I think, something that's fairly intuitive. When you're playing a pot size c-bet, you can't bet everything, so you need to prioritize, and then naturally we're going to bet our most vulnerable value hands and check the less vulnerable ones. But what's going on here with the queens through eights region? Why is queens checking but eights betting? Kind of a similar concept where we have our 3 street value hands, or 2 street if you bet big enough, which are just going for stacks, where we pick the vulnerable ones to bet and the invulnerable ones to check. We also have 1 street value hands that want to get 1 bet in, like queens through eights and we king X. And in this region, we're doing the same kind of thing where we pick the ones that need less protection, they go and check. And as the pocket pair needs more and more protection, we can see the betting frequency increasing. And for the purposes of this video, I'm only going to be discussing the value ranges, not the bluffing ranges. So we're done with this sim. I want to go back and in PLO-Visions, I made a King 7-3 rainbow board. This is as close as you can get to King 8-4, and I saw that the betting frequency is 67%. So I ran a Hold'em sim, which also has roughly 67% betting frequency, so we can take a look at the structure of the solution here. Now, immediately upon looking at this, if you don't have any experience with these kinds of solutions, it looks like a big mess. It's tough to understand what's going on, but this is part of the reason that we looked at the previous solution. And also something that helps me to understand these numbers, like 85 and 52 and 57, is to think of the 68% as a baseline. So take a step back. We're betting 70% of the time with our range. This means it's a good board for us. We're putting a lot of money in. If we check, we don't expect the in-position player to be very aggressive. And all our good hands are going to do some amount of betting. But when the average is 68, we want to look at below average and above average and compare numbers to that. So in this sense, pocket kings is betting the average amount. That means it's going to be equally represented in the betting range and in the checking range as far as combos. If we go to the vulnerable value hands from before, king, queen, ace, king, aces, king, jack, these are all betting very often. We'd look at something like king, queen offsuit as a plus 22% bet. This would be a plus 17% bet. So these are definitely hands that we're betting a lot. And when we look at the queens through eights region, we get the same structure as before, where queens, again, it's not doing 0% betting, but 52% for a hand of this strength is very, very low. So queens this is in a way the same structure as before, just calibrated to the fact that we're betting 70% of the time roughly. So queens bets less than jacks and tens and nines and eights, exactly like before, with the same reasoning that you're more interested in betting the hands that need more protection. Similarly, so again, we have the hands that go for stacks, king, queen, king, jack, ace, king, aces, betting often. Sevens also betting often. Because we're going for a non-polar strategy, like why are kings and sevens betting so often here and never in the previous sim? Because this is a non-polarized strategy, you're going to carry a lot more hands like pocket tens or 7x into the turn range. We want hands to defend the turn range by checking, and very often these pocket kings and pocket sevens hands, when you reach a turn, they will then check. While when you're betting pot, you have a lot less of these types of hands. You're less interested in protecting the betting range with sets. So we have, at this point, I think, a pretty good image of what the Hold'em solution looks like in terms of value range. And we can see that even though the numbers are completely different, the structure and the logic is actually very similar between a pot size C-bet and a 40% size C-bet, where among hand types you have this clear prioritization of which hands bet more and which hands bet less, and understanding the solution by comparing it to the baseline number helps us quite a lot. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and look at the PLO-Visions solution. And here, like I said, king 7-3 rainbow is the closest board that I could find to king 8-4. And I'm going to try to go through hands. We can't see all the hands at the same time, but kind of draw a picture of how the value hands line up for this kind of board, so that we know what to do with them. So we'll start with pocket threes betting 96%, pocket sevens betting 95%, and pocket kings betting 73. Now 73 is fairly close to 67. So a bit like Hold'em, the hand's going to be similarly represented. And we have, I think, a decent idea about why. Want to see if pocket sevens, when it's betting and getting called, is like Hold'em going to check the turn quite often. Let's see if that's actually true. Of course, the games are different, so we are making analogies, but they're not going to be super accurate. And the answer is no. Pocket sevens, after betting the flop, is going to be betting the turn most of the time. We'll go back. Pocket kings I've checked before, by the way, is not doing that. It is mixing in checks on the turn as well. So yeah, we know what threes, sevens, and kings are doing. In PLO, a really important hand type. Well, let's actually go with queens through eights. So what I'm doing now, again, PLO is a 4-card game. A lot of the things are different, but I'm just trying to peek into the structure. So we're looking at, on average, is queens betting or checking compared to 67%? Is it similar to Hold'em? Even though obviously we can have queens and kings and queens and aces, but this is going to average out a bit. So queens is 52. But yeah, jacks bets 49. Tens bets 55, nines bets 60, and eights bets 64. So we see a kind of similar structure where as the pair needs more protection, it's doing more betting. Of course, they're all under 67. The hand strength is a lot weaker in PLO than in Hold'em, and it just has different properties. But that's still a bit something to keep in mind, where if you have queens and jacks, 53% betting. If you have eights and nines, actually 49. So I guess it depends on the door cards quite a lot for these pairs, but we're definitely seeing them checking a lot more. So next off in PLO, it's always really important how to play aces in 3-bet pots. That's a very common hand type you're going to have. So we see the aces are kind of equally represented, and I want to go through how the side cards affect our betting decisions. And again, keep in mind that everything we see now, hopefully, we'll look at a different board and see a similar structure. So I want to start with backdoor flush draws. With 2 backdoor flush draws, we're at 87% betting. With 1, we go to 69. And with 0, we go to 76. So it's not linear. I want you guys to pause the video, take a second, try to think if this makes sense to you, and I'll give you guys my explanation. So what I think is going on with aces is that when you have 2 backdoor flush draws, you're in the ace-king hand strength category from Hold'em, where you're just going for stacks, vulnerable value hand, trying to bet a lot. When you have 1 or less, I think the hand is not strong enough to go for stacks. And then 1 backdoor flush draw needs less protection than 0, so we have the same queens through 8s effects as we did in Hold'em. Want to look at kickers to aces a bit. So if we add queens, jacks, or 10s, we have very high betting frequencies. These are very premium side cards where you can make a set or turn gut shots. If you have kind of backdoory stuff, 8-9, 10-9, queen jack, that is pretty much going to turn gut shots or open enders. It looks like we're kind of in between. That doesn't help us bet too much. So it's more about the high pair plus backdoor, the backdoor flush draws, and gut shots will help us bet quite often. So this is how I'm picturing aces. I see all the different iterations of aces, what's going to make me want to bet more. And pretty much we're talking about stuff that gives me really high equity. And the rest of the time, which will be most of the time, I'm going to bet a bit below average with my aces. And like we said, we have the backdoor flush draw effect. So next off, I want to look at King X. With kings, again, imagine we're trying to equate this to a Hold'em hand. So king, queen, jack, 10, great equity against everything. It turns a ton of stuff, just a premium strength hand, and of course it needs protection, so it's going to be doing a lot of betting. How can we kind of think of this just to understand the structure, right? So let's say I change the 10 to an ace. Would we be doing more betting or less betting? I don't know myself, but naturally I think with the ace we need a bit less protection, so we do a bit less betting. See if that's true. Yes. Okay. I just want these differences to make sense because they keep going through all the sims and all the different iterations of bet sizes. Next, what about a king? We said kings bet on average 74. Of course, the backdoor flush draws are going to influence that, but what kind of king would be like really clunky, kind of equate to a Hold'em pocket queens? So I think something like ace, king, deuce, deuce, where it's, or, you know, ace, yeah, where it's just difficult to improve to 2-pair and your hand has poor playability. This makes sense to me to bet a lot less compared to king, queen, jack, 10, which is really premium. And try to, I'm guessing, again, the same thing. If I change the ace to a lower kicker, we actually get more betting because the hand needs more protection. So if I change the ace to a queen, you see the betting jump up because the hand is more in need of protection. We've looked at a few hands. This is mostly to show you guys the methodology. I'm not going to do the full analysis. And now I want to talk about kind of the next step as far as what you should do, because all of this is being done in order to understand what we're doing on the flop and kind of form our opinions about why this is going to be useful when we look at other different solutions. In the end, once you understand why, you should be able to think, what if someone does something different? So what if, for example, someone doesn't study enough and he just bets 67% with everything, not really understanding what hand should go where. How would that affect my strategy as the in-position player? Is his checking range going to be stronger or weaker? Is his betting range going to be stronger or weaker? And starting to understand these things can lead you down to making adjustments and exploits that have a big impact on your win rate. Of course, down the line, it's very, very important to study how to play the turn with your hands as well. I don't think flop strategy is complete without looking at the turn, but for this, you guys can use the Hold'em and PLO methodology as well, where a lot of the principles are going to carry over, although of course PLO is going to have some of its own. That's it for this video. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.